Real quick, before we jump into the show, we created the Collecting Keys podcast to be a real estate investing podcast that is created by real estate operators for real estate operators. And we want operators everywhere to know what it really takes these days to be successful in this business, rather than all the fluff that all the other content creators and podcasters out there make. And so one of the challenges with this is that it's challenging to grow because most operators are too busy out there working, right? And they aren't always learning or actively seeking new learning material. And so if you could please share this show with any fellow operators you can text it to them, you can post it on your socials, you can leave us a good review that you then share somewhere. That would be amazing. But really, whatever, it really helps us continue to get excited to create content. And it will also help you because everyone that you expose us to will get better as a real estate operator and close more deals. So if you could do that for us, it would really mean a ton. And otherwise, we appreciate you guys. And let's get into this episode. There are iBuyers that are still out there, and it can be an opportunity if they're in your market, but also to understand that you are competing with them.
You guys ever heard of High Rocks?
That's CrossFit for people who aren't strong and just want to run a marathon instead. It's so dumb.
So glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that because I saw a video today of like a High Rocks competition. I was like, oh, so another thing marathon runners can ruin for everybody?
Totally did. And it's become like the new CrossFit thing. Like that's what we used to do on a Saturday. And you making like a whole event out of it. Like it's like doing competitive Murph. It's just dumb.
But my understanding, so then, you know, Aaron, he's a mutual friend of ours. He was telling about this like a couple months ago, and I had never seen an activity.
Aaron was on the show last week.
Different Aaron.
He was your replacement.
Oh, different Aaron.
No, different Aaron. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Anyways, he was telling me about it, and I was like, okay. But it's like the same exact like body movement exercises or body weight exercises, and that's the competition. Like, that's so dumb.
Every single time, exactly the same.
This is the power of marketing and branding, Dan.
Yeah, but it's just a bunch of skinny dudes with running shoes.
Like, exactly. It's dumb.
They have their Asics shoes or what's the other popular one? I forget.
The Saucony, is that the other brand?
I don't know, man. I miss the fitness days when it was just like a bunch of moms and like old dudes like trying to do snatches and shit. And they have like no business doing that. Like, they are putting their body on the line for that Saturday workout.
But you know what? CrossFit was bigger than ever and it was going good.
That was a glory days. There was blood everywhere, dirty.
Yeah.
That's throwing on some Die Motherfucker Die from, is that dope?
Good song.
Did you ever rip your hands on one of those bars though? That shit hurt.
Yeah, dude. I filleted my hands.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, welcome to the Real Estate Fitness Show, apparently, everybody. No, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. If this is your first time here, this is the Real Estate Operator Show made by operators for real estate operators. I am Mike DeHaan here with my co-hosts, Dan Austin and Dylan Cook.
Hey.
And on the show, we like to dive into real estate as a whole and how you can continue to grow and be successful in your real estate business despite all the market ups and downs and, just dealing with general business as a small business owner, which is always interesting. And of course, a big part of that is staying in shape, which Dan has recently rediscovered. So Dan,
I'm a High Rocks athlete now.
Yeah, you're a High Rocks athlete. I will say though, there's like wall balls and rowing in that. So you're fucked because you're like 5'4".
I don't like any of those things. Those are the worst activities.
They are for you.
I feel like wall balls for a shorter person would be better because you have less to move.
No, you got to throw the ball higher.
No, you got to throw the ball higher, bro.
Tall guys are always better.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess, if you're like 6'5", that'd be definitely a big... The row, though, I will say is dumb.
Yeah, for you,
like,
for sure.
I do it all the time, and it sucks.
Yeah, so, leverage. But anyways, guys, welcome to today's show. We got some good topics to dive into, and one of the first ones, I think, out of the gates, Dylan, which I really liked this little post that you found, which I feel like is very relevant for today's space because everyone's always trying to figure out like these institutional buyers. And I feel like the iBuyers was such a huge thing in 21 and 22 when the market was red hot. And then a lot of them completely disappeared for 2 years. And now they're kind of back. So you found this Twitter post that basically said, no, BlackRock isn't buying up all your homes. And here's actually who is. And it went through like a handful of different ones. Open Doors at the top, which a lot of people will be familiar with as an iBuyer. But the one that stood out to me the most on this was with 4,634 properties was New Western.
Great company by all accounts.
They have like the worst reputation. Anyone that's been around, I feel like every time I talk to a wholesale operator, they always go, "Oh, do you have New Western in your market?"
Mhm.
And it's like the most frustrating thing because they have it's a dispo shop and they sell these shitty deals. But apparently they're like the second biggest buyer in the country with all the double closes that they're doing.
Well, the way that they do these too, so I guess for those that aren't aware, like the New Western model, like the way their company works is I think you almost essentially have to pay to work for them. Like it's not like they're employees.
It's like a brokerage. Yeah, you guys like a desk fee or whatever.
Exactly. And so they basically, it's like the no skill wholesaler job. Like you just show up and call other wholesalers and look for deals that are being dispoed. I mean, that's typically how I've encountered them is they'll see a deal that we're dispoed, like, hey, I can help you buy it, which is actually nice because somehow they have a buyer's list of people that will sometimes move the worst deals, but then they'll also screw you over last minute. So you can't trust any of them because they're just sales dudes too. They want to get as many people in their sphere as possible. I guess my point in that is they have a ton of people out there doing this in every market to get that 4,634.
You can give me about 36 seconds. I just want to share our Scale community with you. So Scale stands for Scaling Cash Flow, Assets, Leverage, and Equity. And it is our exclusive community for real estate operators looking to take this game seriously. In the community, you can hang out with myself, Dan, Dylan, and other operators around the country who are all working to be the best in their market. We recently did a survey, and every single member said that the community had directly contributed to major growth they experienced in the last 12 months. On top of that, you get all of our processes around marketing, sales, building a CRM, and you even get preferred relationships with Lowe's and different financing/lenders so that you can get your deals 100% paid for without a headache. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, go to collectingkeys.com/scale. Let's see if you're a good fit. You know how it works though too, Dan. I don't know if you do know this, but have you ever, when we've gone to one of these new markets, you go and you post in the Facebook group, hey, we have this deal, and all of a sudden like 6 New Western people hit you up?
Yeah.
Do you know why that is?
Yes.
Why?
Because the first person in their CRM to have contact with you, you forever are their client.
Exactly. They get like exclusivity. So
any deal you do with it, you could go to a totally different market, do any deal.
So you guys have push notifications turned on every Facebook page.
Yeah.
Oh,
ever.
Yeah. And they do. They hunt you down. They're like if you went onto like an online insurance company and it's just like a lead shop, like 80 insurance agents trying to call you for your business. They're the same way.
It's basically like how, people go on a PPL form and then they promise to only sell the lead to one person. And then you talk to the PPL lead and they've been called by 85 other wholesale companies.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I wanted to point out for the audience is Open Doors at the top around just like under 12,000. New Western second, but it's at 4,600. So like there's a pretty big gap between 1 and 2.
Huge gap.
It's a huge gap.
And then the rest of them all trickle down from 4 to the couples and 2s and mostly in the thousands.
Yeah.
And so this list is corporate buyers, right?
Correct.
So the interesting thing I think too about this list though is like I would say New Western probably represents the individual.
Probably, yeah.
More than they represent a corporate company. So if you take that into account, I would say mom and pops are still the largest buyer. And these are single family homes. So like, we're still running the market out there, guys.
Yeah. I mean, that's valid because almost all their sourcing is from other wholesalers. I don't know if they do any marketing themselves. I'm assuming it's all JVs.
I don't think they do.
That's a good point. Yeah. And they're probably selling not to other companies. Like if you and I are trying to buy a property, we're probably not buying from New Western.
No, you know what they're doing? They're selling the Open Door.
Honestly, that's probably the trick, right?
So that's what this chart's actually false because the 4,634 is being counted twice by New Western and Open Door.
That's honestly.
I mean, we have a couple of these. We don't have New Western in my market, at least not a huge presence that I'm aware of. I feel like I would know that. We have a couple of these though, and some of them are like Columbus up near me. But honestly, like you said, the heyday, I sold a couple of the hedge funds, like Vinebrook was a big one around here. SFR3 is another one, like a lot of Midwestern ones. But they don't, one, they stopped buying, and 2, a lot of them are selling a lot of the inventory that they bought back then too. So these things go in cycles, man. I know people get pissed if you hear you sold a hedge funds. Like it's never going back on the market. It should go to someone who's going to live there. It does. It just takes time.
It does take time.
Well, if you think about it, and you're going to be really smart on this one, Dylan, but the hedge funds, they're just looking at a number on a sheet. And when the time to sell is, it's time to sell, right? And so they're really just looking at different spreads and how much money they can make when they go into the single family game. They didn't do it because they were like, we're going to get lucky and just buy all the houses and keep them forever. Like they have a number in their head. And once they hit that number, they sell, whether it's a good number or a bad number.
Most of them underwrite on some kind of like gross yield. Like, so the rent minus expenses, and the yield's honestly pretty low on what they could get for it. But a lot of them do have bad reputations of not maintaining the properties. Like you almost need that whole property management arm of the business. that might have been ruining the acquisition side of the business because they get a whole bunch of complaints from cities, like overgrown lawns, holes in roofs, tenants complain all the time. So I think that's honestly more of it is the maintaining of the properties, not the buying of the properties.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, they've even done shady stuff too. Like they'll buy like a whole neighborhood and just keep them empty because they don't want people to trash the properties.
Interesting. I didn't know they did that.
Yeah. There's been articles and stuff that have gone on about that, especially in some of like the Sunbelt areas where they're like just basically buying entire developments and controlling the comps as like more houses get built because then they can price them up when they go to sell them.
Right. I mean, because it makes sense because if you've got no debt servicing, like that's out there. So you're just going to pay your taxes and all that sort of stuff, your typical small number utility costs because nobody's living in it. And if the market's going up, you just wait it out.
Exactly. The top markets that these corporate buyers are buying in, Atlanta is at the top by quite a bit. It says Atlanta, Sandy Springs, Roswell. So I'm assuming that that's like a suburb of Atlanta. But that's at almost 3,700. And then next one up is 700 less, which is right at 3,000, which is Dallas, Fort Worth. And then from there, and we're down a whole nother 1,000 to Houston. And so like those, and then Phoenix is a close fourth behind that. So those four markets though, like there's such a huge divide, and Atlanta apparently is where they're at for a lot of these corporate buyers. I'm curious why that is.
I feel like these have been the popular spots in the past couple of years anyway.
Yeah.
Atlanta, Dallas, Fort Worth.
Yeah.
But
huge metros
and obviously growing populations. But like they go in these like sine wave looking patterns where they build and they overgrow and then they come back down, then they overgrow. There's no like just relative choppiness. It's like these peaks and troughs that are just so high and low.
As you get down the list though, right, there's actually some pretty interesting ones in there. So they have San Bernardino or Ontario, California. They have Los Angeles, Long Beach, Anaheim is on there. And they get down to, Denver's in there. So they're going outside of like the whole red state narrative as well and getting into California, which I wouldn't have expected that at all. I wouldn't expect to see anything in California on that list.
Right. Well, Riverside, San Bernardino is probably a red county.
But it doesn't matter.
But then you've got Long Beach. You got Long Beach.
Either way.
Austin's the blue part of Texas.
Yeah, that's true.
Is the one blue part.
Yeah.
Probably. But there's only one flipper on here too. Like out of the whole thing, only Wedgwood. And
you're right.
I think that just speaks to the fact that it is very hard to grow a flipping operation in multiple markets like that. Like there's a reason there's not $1 billion flipping companies.
Well, not in terms of like doing fix and flip. I think a lot of you were just talking about how Open Door selling off their properties. That was a flip, but it was a flip based on the macroeconomics and not on a value add renovation.
Yes. Right? Yeah, correct. Flipping as in like they're trying to just turn around and sell it immediately to a new owner.
Yeah, they're trading it just like stock now.
Yeah.
Time to sell.
So it's interesting how that applies to your business. I mean, I think a big thing to take from that is that there are iBuyers that are still out there, and it can be an opportunity if they're in your market, but also to understand that you are competing with them. We actually had a Scale member this past week talk about how they lost a deal to a hedge fund who came in and offered pretty much what their MAO was a $25,000 non-refundable earnest money and a 5-day close. How do you compete with that? I don't know.
No inspection,
no anything like that. That's about as tough as it gets.
It's hard to compete. Yeah, I think the other thing just to think about is like as a business owner, as an investor as well, you're trying to make decisions based on all the information you can take in. And at the end of the day, who gives a shit what the headlines say? Because like, I've heard this quote like, oh, the hedge funds are buying up all the properties and it's killing the real estate forever. It's like, not really. I really look at this list and I see that mom and pop investors are buying probably more than all of the hedge funds put together. If you actually just like add up all the people that are flipping houses and wholesaling houses and all that sort of stuff in your market and through New Western and all that. So it's not a true statement. You could say that, but it's just not a true statement.
Honestly, it's probably better now than it was a couple of years ago.
Oh, definitely.
Because no one's holding rentals anymore. So they are buying to flip them and sell them to, a home buyer.
Exactly. They're putting more on the market, basically more. There's more available.
Yeah.
And potentially in some of these places where like Open Door's operating, I know back in like 23 when stuff started getting really toppy and going down the other way, like Open Door was just dumping houses, right? Which naturally brings down the price of houses in your area.
So we'll see what comes of that. I don't know. It's always interesting to see it. They keep a pulse. The fact that they are still buying, though, I would say is a pretty good bullish indicator for real estate. I mean, if they thought stuff was going to be going down hard, they wouldn't be buying anymore.
Right.
But also, I mean, just one caveat on that, Open Door stock has tanked like 95% in 2 years. So maybe they don't make good decisions. I have no idea.
Who knows? Yeah.
Anyways, well, Dylan, well, congratulations. You're officially a business owner. Hired your first AM that's actually successful, which was attempt number 3. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So because the other AMs that you had, I think you had one that just no showed at all.
Correct.
And then you had one that showed up for one day and you invited him to scale sales training and he never showed up.
Never showed up
Again.
Yep.
So you fired him and then you finally got a good one.
Yeah. As I told the scale community, posted a screenshot on our little Slack channel. I was just at the gym and then I get a message from the new AM that basically says, hey, seller agreed to this price and we're meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. to go over the contract. And
heck yeah.
It was a surreal feeling. I was like, holy shit, here I'm just trying to, do my workout and it's not solely dependent on me to drive revenue in the business.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a good feeling.
Yeah. So why do you think this guy was different? Although the bar was super freaking low because he showed up.
Yeah.
So you already beat the first 2 guys. But going through the process on your 3rd attempt, what'd you do differently in hiring? Why do you think this guy has been able to be so successful right off the bat?
So a couple of things is, I really didn't do much different. I really just reposted something on Facebook. In fact, it was my previous year's post that pretty much reshared and said, hey, this didn't work out. Anyone looking to make, some good money in real estate, reach out to me. And a handful of people did. But this guy, I had kind of already known from mutual connections, just being in the real estate space already. So we hopped on the phone and just started talking. And his really expectation was, what is the job description? How much am I going to be on the phones and what's the compensation?
Mm-hmm.
We walked through that, which, for the audience, he's getting $2,000 a month flat fee. Then we're doing a tiered structure. So the first 2 deals are $2,000. The next 2 deals are $3,000. Anything 5 deals or more is $5,000 a deal.
Damn.
And that's per month?
Per month. Yeah. And with the caveat, if something gets pushed from the 31st to the 1st, you're not a dickhead about it and still count it to the previous month.
Yeah.
See how long that takes, bro. I'll be playing that game all day.
Yeah.
Like, come on, we got it. I'd be showing up like moving the lady's shit out on the curb. We're closing early.
Yeah. I'm not paying this guy more.
Yeah. But no, honestly, we vibe well together. He kind of already knew a lot of the real estate stuff.
Yeah.
So really it's just plugging him to the CRM. Then I probably have like close to 15 Loom videos, that was shared with him on how you run comps on PropStream. Here's our our calculator on offers. And here's some calls that I've done in the past that I think are good calls. And let's echo this. And so we are doing call reviews. We do about 1 every day right now. And honestly, he's kind of hit the ground running. And now I'm just going through the CRM and making sure all of our tasks are appropriate.
Yeah.
Nice. How many of your leads has he taken over from you versus are like ones that you just neglected? Like, are you still running with leads where you had a previous relationship with the seller?
So when I logged into the CRM and went to the task, there's ones all the way back from April of 2024 that hadn't been touched.
Yeah, I remember you did a little screen share and your CRM was a freaking nightmare.
Yeah, it was. And so basically, he's taking over probably 80% of the leads.
Nice.
So a lot of the ones that I've had very recent or like more recent conversations are ones that I think are close. I'm kind of hanging on to those. Just like you said, it's for the rapport building. I don't want to hand it off like, oh, here's Tony now that's taking over. And so, but after this being said, even the first month, I think we're going to close 2 deals with him. So
that's awesome.
That's really good.
That's a great start too, just like for his morale, right? Because one of the biggest challenges for AMs is there's a ton of wholesalers, flippers that are schmucks, right? And they don't have a good process. They don't have good lead flow. And they hire an AM, even though they don't have like a track record of actually being successful. And they think that if they get this AM, that some magic's going to happen. And I remember when we first started hiring like kind of at scale and trying to get better people, one of the first questions they'd always ask was like, okay, so you guys are actually a legit operation, or am I just going to come in here and realize I'm wasting my fucking time? Right? They would say it more professionally than that, but you get it. And so for them to come in and get deals right off the bat, that's going to pay compound interest on his success moving forward because he knows that you have that opportunity for him.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
And this is going to sound somewhat arrogant, but I think I have a pretty good reputation. A lot of people in the real estate market in Cincinnati probably know who I am.
Oh, totally.
And I think that also helped.
Yeah.
Right. All you got to do is ask around and they know, oh yeah, Dylan.
Yeah. I mean, and things like that matter, right? Like you have time in the market, you know people, you've treated people well. And this is one of the reasons I always encourage people to be like posting about deals that they're closing, or try to have like a way that people can find you. Like honestly, people ask all the time about the podcast and, what sort of comes from that. The biggest thing that's come from the podcast, honestly, is hiring is so much easier because if someone sees a job listing from Collecting Keys, they can go and they can see 400 something episodes from us and they can see exactly who we're about, what we do. You know, they see our wins and losses on social media and different things, and they can decide if they vibe with that or not, right? So they're not just like, you know, ABC house buyers or whatever with no anything in a website that doesn't even have content outside of the freaking Carrot site templated bullshit. So it looks like a fake company.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, no BBB, no Google reviews, no anything like that, right?
Yeah.
And just being in a real estate business for more than 5 years, like honestly, is like put you as a dinosaur age in this business.
Honestly.
I gotta imagine that's like a 1%er thing. That's a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Especially because context for people as a real estate agent, which I can't imagine lasts more than 2 years or 3 years on average.
If that. Yeah.
1 year. I just want to, for the audience and people thinking about hiring. So how many days did it take or weeks or whatever from you bringing him on and him basically hitting the phones to getting his first contract?
I mean, he hit the phones on the first day.
Right. And so how many days in between that and his first actual contract?
Honestly, it was pretty quick, and this is probably not the norm. A new call came in, and I changed it so like it calls his phone.
Yeah.
Like when the calls come in. We went and walked this property together. It was a little bit unique where it's like a mixed use building that was zoned as a single family, like almost incorrectly, but that's why it came through. But I knew the area. I brought a buyer with me. We walked it together, and we agreed upon it literally that day. So it's probably like 3 to 4 days before we got the first one.
So it's super fast. So outside of that one,
which is super fast.
So then the next one was how many days? Deal 2?
Probably a week.
Okay.
But so like Mike alluded to, I have almost like a backlog of leads that he can address. Like my worry is going to be if once we get through this backlog is like keep feeding him. But that should take hopefully a long time.
Well, the good thing is, like you said, a new call came in and you guys got a deal out of it, right? And so I think that there's some fear, right? Of like, okay, if the new call comes in, they might screw it up on their first day. So I should hold on to these calls. And there's nothing wrong with that logic, but also at the same time, that lead doesn't know who you are or who your AM is, right? So they're calling in thinking that they're calling this company and they're established and this is going to be an experienced sales guy. So it's almost better to let them run with that relationship anyways. And then you can kind of hold their hand through the back end. And if they're good enough on the phone to not fumble it on the phone immediately, they're probably going to be okay. But if they can't even get through a normal phone call with somebody, but I mean, you're not making an offer call or doing anything crazy on the first call with the seller anyways. So you might want to reevaluate your selection if they can't get through a 5-minute intake phone call.
I mean, dude, he had 2 like 30-minute phone calls like the first day. I'm like, bro, get off the phone. You're costing me money. Like,
right. Which is
lie to him.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you want though. Totally. That's like a good litmus test, honestly, for people is can they actually have those conversations and build rapport with the wide range of people that we get in this business, right? The wide range of sellers. You know, because like, especially depending on their sales background, especially people that come from like B2B sales or sales where all the lead gen is warm, like they're in insurance sales, right? Or something like they're selling car insurance. And so every person they talk to like went onto a website and said that I want car insurance quote. That's a different conversation than somebody that's responding to your offer letter that, you know, has like a number that you're probably not going to pay. Right. Or somebody that's like from a cold call that talked to a Filipino that asked like 4 questions that were super vague. And now they're going to have to be picking it up from there.
Yeah,
totally.
It's much more challenging process.
Meeting people where they are. Like you got to recognize someone if they're like, you know, give me the offer now. Tell me what it is. Like no bullshit. Or like someone just died. Like it's like a probate. Like you address these conversations so much differently depending on the person on the other side of the line. And to your point about fumbling the calls earlier, we've already had to play good cop, bad cop a couple of times. Like I'd call him back, you know, a day later, be like, hey, you know, sorry you had to talk, like deal with that. What's the information that you need? Here's where we'll probably likely be at. Can we come see the property? Like, you know, tomorrow or whatever. So all that to say, the most important thing is people pick up the phone and you can have conversations with them.
Totally.
You know, and if they're not willing to do that, that's another thing too, is there's a lot of salespeople that are not willing to put in the time for these kind of transactions. It's also not going to be a good fit.
What do you guys track as your KPIs for a lot of your AMs? Is calls made, time on the phone, offers?
It's always kind of subjective, right? People always want to have these hard numbers, like they need to make 50 phone calls a day, which I don't like that because depending on the answer rate, which is completely out of their control, those 50 calls could take 2 hours. They could take 12 hours, right? If you get a bunch of people that call and want to talk for 30 to 40 minutes, which can theoretically happen, right? And so what we look for is trends, and what you want to see. And what we actually do is we will base good performance off of our lead managers, our Filipinos, because they should always have higher output.
Way higher output.
They got nothing else to do. They just sit there. They're workhorses, right? And we typically want our AMs that are going a little more into like the deep end of analysis and everything else to be like 50 to 75% of the output of our lead managers, right? So like a good AM on our end will be making 30 to 50 calls a day and typically have 1 to 3 hours of talk time, just depending.
And that's doing mostly virtual, right? Because if they had like 5 hours of driving around, that's not going to happen each day. So you just have to account for that.
For the AM side, yeah, right.
But an office day for a local AM, that's totally equivalent.
Totally. Yeah. And if they're driving around, it's obviously different. When it comes to like the post-call indicators, like appointments, things like that, again, it's always tough because people will say like, well, I need my guys to be on 4 appointments a week. What if they don't have 4 good appointments to go to?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, they're just wasting time.
There's wasting time, right? Like, so again, it comes down to trends and being realistic. Like the more important stuff that I like to track is there should be no leads that don't have an active task, right? Because that means they're not being managed. Every lead that's on the front page should be getting touched at a minimum once a week, if not more than that. And what you want to see is you want to see notes and clear communication, right? And those are the things that will keep you organized and move the deal forward. If they're not prospecting. If they're prospecting as well, they're doing cold calling, it's slightly different because they're going to be in charge of their own lead flow. But if they're just responding to direct mail and other things, their job is organization and analyzing opportunities as much as it is just like brute force output.
Totally.
So really long answer to say it depends.
I would add into that though, because like there's some like quick, like you said, trends too, Mike. I don't know. Go look at your dashboard, and if it shows your AM called like 6 people and text 2 people and they're like, I just don't have any leads.
That's a problem.
What are you talking about, dude? There's 100 warm leads and you made 6 calls and 2 texts today, right? Like what else were you doing?
They're not going to fall in your lap. You got to hunt.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So there's some of those like really quick tests where those numbers kind of make sense, but I would reinforce what Mike is saying too, is like in some senses, this is a high volume, like mass marketing business, but it's not a high lead volume business. And so when you're cold calling, you can go and say, I want you to make 500 to 600 phone calls a day on a 3-line dialer. Like that's a metric because you're doing some mass outreach. But in the leads that actually we are working on, this isn't like a real estate agent who's going through their list of homeowners in a zip code where you're like, I want you to have 100 phone calls by noon every single. It's just, that's not how this works. And so yes, we're mass marketing, but we're not touching mass amounts of leads. So it's a little bit more nuanced and more qualitative than it is quantitative.
And I think the bigger things to look towards as well are like, what is their actual conversion? I have a lot of calls with people about this, and people always want their AMs to be fully independent of them for some reason. They're like, I want them to be able to analyze deals and make offers and like, fully control themselves and keep everything organized and be completely accountable. Like if they were going to do that, they would go work for themselves. They wouldn't work for you.
Right. They're now your competitor if they're doing that.
Yeah.
And your job as the manager, right, of this person is to give them direction and make sure that they're staying on top of their stuff. And then you as the contract signer, you should be underwriting every deal because you technically have a conflict of interest with your AM. Right? Because their only goal is to get a contract. They're going to get paid based off of getting a contract and having a closed deal. Your goal is to have as good of a deal as possible.
Right.
So if you give them full reign, they're just going to do whatever they feel like they need to get a contract signed. Right? And then when it comes to managing them, it is up to you to review every single decent lead that comes through. And you can have them keep like discard leads that aren't good or stay on top of ones that are better. But it's really important for you to go through, read the notes, talk about the leads, analyze the opportunities, and use that to figure out if they're any good. Because if you're like, when you've been doing this for a while, you can tell like pretty early on, like that, this is a deal for sure. Like I can just tell based off the situation, the way the person's talking. If they fuck that one up, that's a performance opportunity for them, right? They might not like the offer. There might be, a situation that doesn't make sense, whatever. But that's where your job as a manager comes down to like figuring out how good that AM is. And if you're trying to go purely off of just numerical data, it's almost impossible.
Oh, yeah, totally.
There's always a piece of analysis that has to go down. I can't tell you how many, I always feel like it's smaller operators, like the 1 to 3 deal operators that are just burned out and they're like, I just want an AM to do it all for me. I'm like, if you want to get to 5, 6, 7, 10 deals a month, you're going to need to be an armchair quarterback and make sure that your team is playing the game correctly. Otherwise, they're just going to fucking run all over the place and not do a good job.
And like the whole reason why I did the compensation structure that I mentioned earlier was because like the AM, you don't want to be like, okay, if we make 5K or we make 50K, that doesn't make a difference for me.
Right.
Because if they're compensation based, like on a percentage, then that really does make a difference.
It does.
Yep.
Right. Then they're just going after the bigger opportunities.
Yeah.
So, but the small ones are where keep the lights on.
It is. Yeah. And that's a lesson that we learned pretty early on when we were doing like a 10% or 15% commission off of top line, right? Or whatever it was. And the second she got a huge deal, we had one deal, we had like an $80,000 fee. And this is our first AM. And she made like 15 or 16 grand one month. And she's like, I am fucking cruising.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything next month now. Right.
Yep.
And from there, it was all downhill. It was so hard to get her excited to chase the $8,000 to $12,000 deals.
And then the nuance of, okay, are we going to flip it? You get paid on the back end, so now you're not getting paid for 6 months, whatever.
Or you're buying a rental, right? Like, and so there's technically no revenue. How do you pay them that? You just pay them out of pocket.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it on a commission percentage base, you say, oh, well, we could have wholesaled this for $40,000. Don't lie. You're going to be dishonest about that. You're going to tell them you could have wholesaled it for 10, so you pay them less money. Everyone would do that.
Yeah.
Why would you not?
Yep. So, I mean, that's the whole point though. So like, learn that from you guys at the beginning. So at least this group is worth something.
Yeah. Hey, saved you something.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, then the other side of being a new business owner, as you anointed me, Mike, is I got my first demand letter from an attorney. It's always just fun to deal with.
Like a marketing letter or like
no, it's
for like a deal you did.
No, almost neither. It's basically the bar owner next to my 8 units getting rehabbed. One of my independent contractors, not even mine. I shouldn't say mine. He's not mine. But the contractor beat up the guy next door after they had like a screaming match at each other. So apparently that's my fault.
That's like a legit thing. Yeah.
Why is that on you though?
So my attorney said it's probably not on me.
Yeah. Was it on your property or was it on that guy's property? Like
on his, but he was pissed that my guy was on his property.
I mean, you're fine. I don't know. Like, what were you there? Like, did you let him off his leash and he was fucking running around? Like,
exactly. Like I had no control over that. Right.
It's like he's some kind of pit bull or something.
And he's not like my contractor either. He's a 1099 guy from the GC that I have on the job. So
yeah.
All I'm thinking about is the story from episode whatever it was where the guy had a contractor shitting in a paint pan instead of the porta potty outside.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like, this is your contractor. Like he was at this guy's house, like doing something stupid like that, shitting in his like paint cans or something.
No, it's just been a whole ordeal, but it is what it is. It's more of the like annoyance I have to deal with it now. Like, it's just something else that's on your plate, but
Is Ohio pretty like friendly when it comes to stuff like that?
Yeah, I think so. I guess I don't really have much experience in it, but I haven't heard horror stories like
call that common sense.
Saying that this is going to get tied up in litigation for years or what's the famous one that some burglar fell off a guy's roof and they sued the property owner. Yeah. Like I don't think anything like that.
He fell through a skylight. Yeah. That's what that is in that one. Seriously.
That's insane to me.
That's wild.
So some states are different. So I have one of my GoBundance GoPod members right now who just got sued. And he basically he's in the state of New Jersey. And how it works there is regardless of who wins the lawsuit, the defendant is required to pay all of the legal fees.
That's wild.
Right? And so essentially what happened is he got sued for this situation and there was an ambulance chaser legal company that basically what they do is they just try to find, smaller companies that will get shook down by this and they just extort them for money.
Wow.
Right? And so they started at trying to sue them for $1 million. And they ended up settling for $250,000. And essentially they ended up at $250,000 because the option was going to be with how long the judge predicted and his lawyer predicted it to take was going to cost him about $250,000 if he paid both sides of it. And so the company got him was like, yeah, you can either pay it out over 4 months and you'll win, but you're still going to pay it anyway. Or you could just pay it right now and be done with it.
Wow.
See, that is so messed up to me.
That's wrong. It's backwards.
Yeah, he moved because of it.
Yeah, I would too.
He left his company and he's like, I'm leaving New Jersey. And he moved to a different state.
No shit. What state did he choose?
Yeah, he moved to North Carolina, Charlotte.
The South, better weather.
Yeah. I'm like, that's crazy. And it makes me think like, I don't know what that process looks like in Washington. I have no idea.
I feel like we're a little more common sense. Like you hear some extreme stuff, but like I feel like in Washington, you don't hear too many extreme things like that where people are doing, we do some dumb stuff over here, but it's not that crazy.
That is one thing I will say that I do appreciate about Washington, even though people call, it's a blue state, whatever. We have come to find that if you follow the rules and you don't do dirtbag shit, they're actually very friendly here for like whatever.
Yeah, we're not too extreme on anything except for fentanyl. Like we love fentanyl, but like other than that, we're pretty like, steady.
But even then, if you follow the rules and you do fentanyl in your own house and you don't buy anyone else, no one gives a shit. Just fucking do your thing.
I don't know what this conversation just reminded me, but this would be probably good for the audience and for you guys if you still have rentals. Mutual friend of mine has 3 properties like right next to each other, all 4 units. One of them basically combusted into flames like last weekend. And they thought it was a supposed gas leak. And the leading theory was a couple of things went wrong. No carbon monoxide / like working smoke detectors. The gas leak not being reported, I guess, in time. But meth was also I think that's what triggered my memory, was also a
contributing factor
theory at one point. But so my point in all this is saying insurance is still unknown because they might like say you should have had this stuff in place. So we might not cover you. People did get hurt. No one died, luckily, but like literally half the brick wall is like missing. But if you're a landlord, you should have a check-in form with your tenants and go over it, or your property manager goes over it the day that they move in. And one of the check mark items is working like smoke detectors / carbon monoxide detectors.
Yep.
Yeah.
So just put that in your repertoire if you don't already have that.
That kind of stuff is why certain states, Washington is now one of these states, you have to get a inspection and a license to have it around property.
Oh, really?
And then they re-inspect it every year. They have to have a license.
Have they actually ever inspected any of our properties though?
I don't know. Our property managers handle all that. Yeah.
Like you have to get a license now. Yeah. You have to get a license now. And that's the city of Spokane. I don't know if it's statewide yet.
Yeah.
It's a thing, but it makes sense when you drive by some of these shitholes. You're like, how is this guy getting away with it? Like I pride myself on at least having a roof that doesn't leak.
Yeah, we have that with like subsidized places. They may go through all their inspections and stuff, but
yeah, and we do the same thing. Yeah, we have that.
But now it's all rentals. It's all rentals here now, which honestly I support because like Dan said, there's a lot of like shitholes that are out there. And I'm like, yeah, people shouldn't live this way. Like this is why we were having rules. And of course, those guys are always the first ones too that are like, this fucking government telling me how to do my best. I'm like, you have a family of 17 living in your property and you've basically like pigeonholed them there because
done nothing.
Yeah, because you refuse to allow them to leave. You won't give them like a rental referral. Right. And, they're lower income and they don't have running water. Nice job, asshole.
Yeah. The thing I don't like about those rules, though, like the only downside is like that guy will somehow like check the box and then I'll get like hammered for like something stupid.
Yeah. That's all.
You know what I mean? You're like, dude, look how nice this is compared to this guy's rat infest. Like, well, rats aren't on our list. You know what? Sorry.
Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah. It's like, the government is the technicalities. Like, it's just like, come on, guys. Like, use common sense here. But yeah.
I failed an inspection once. I didn't have my stairs to the basement, which was not even used for the tenant, had some chipping paint on it, which is like their go-to thing. I know. But the tenant that was applying sent me a picture of where she currently lived that was also on the same subsidy. And it was way, way worse.
Really?
So it was like, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Just proves your point.
Yeah, it kind of sucks, but yeah, there needs to be something around some of that stupid stuff just to make it common sense. But I will reinforce what you said about the smoke detectors and the CO2 and stuff. And I care about it not from a like government thing, from the insurance standpoint. Like, so Mike and I have talked about this stupid house. We've had this flooded so many times. So we call the insurance and they're like, oh yeah, so we don't cover groundwater. I'm like, so if my house gets flooded with groundwater, it doesn't count. Correct. Okay.
That's the whole thing about flood insurance not actually covering like with heavy rains. But yeah.
Right. And so then I'm like, well, we have a sump pump. They're like, oh, well, if that failed, then we could give you at least $5,000. I was like, cool. So we do. Oh, your sump pump's on the outside of the house, not on the inside. Yeah. Oh, we don't cover sump pumps that are on the outside of the house failing. But I'm like, it's the same source of water. Like, it's the same problem. Like, yeah, so we're going to cover.
It's so stupid.
It's like, wait, what? So there's so many like little technicalities. Don't let it be something stupid like you didn't check the box that the tenant is required to, reinstall new batteries in your smoke detectors if the house burns down. Because they will use that.
And then also it goes into the asset protection. Like, do you have each property in LLC, a certain dollar amount in each LLC, umbrella insurance on top of other stuff once you get to a certain size. Other factors play into this once you have a decent amount of assets.
Dude, the longer I'm in the game, the more I see these things hurting people.
Yeah. You should get umbrella insurance anyway. Everyone that's in business should have that.
It's cheap.
I just upped my umbrella insurance policy to $5 million. My total annual cost is like $680.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's so cheap. Right. And basically that will protect me from any lawsuit up to $5 million.
Unless the lawsuit has to do with a sump pump on the exterior of a house.
I don't know why we would have a lawsuit with that.
Tying back to the demand letter I got, I was talking to my attorney. He's like, you might want to tell your insurance company because I guess in the policy, they have something for legal fees that may or may not be present.
Oh.
Like I didn't even know that was a thing.
That's good to know.
I'm good. If you guys are good, or do you have anything pressing for the month of March in your business?
Not right now. We'll, next week, we'll be recording our last one for March. So we'll do a quick overview of just like Q1 and everything by then.
Q1, baby.
So yeah, maybe Dylan, next week, come with your numbers for the first quarter. We'll do the same. We can talk about what we're seeing, trends we're seeing just on the marketing side, on the deal flow side,
Got it.
and everything else. And that will be a good conversation for everyone.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
See y'all.
Thanks for listening, everyone. If you want more from us, you can shoot us a follow on Instagram. I am at Mike_invest. Dan is at InvestorManDan. And Dylan is at Dylan_does_deals. Shoot us a follow and send us a DM to let us know what you think of the show.